Welcome to Why, Who, Where, the podcast that looks at success the way it should really be looked at. Join your host, Zubin Shroff, as he takes you through conversations with our guests.
My guest today is an entrepreneur and leader in the tech and media industry. As CEO of Max Dragon Technology in Singapore, she has for the past 7 years driven her company to the forefront of AI, IoT, and robotics innovation in Asia Pacific. She also serves as director at 28 Degrees Media, providing top-tier consultancy to media publishers. Her career includes pivotal roles at the Australian Radio Network and other top organizations in Australia. Growing up in Melbourne as an only child, she developed an attitude for getting what she wanted, which over the years fueled her tenacity when life pushed her back. Welcome, Linda Worthington.
Linda, welcome. I'm very excited about this, and I really appreciate you making the time. Linda, why don't we hear from you about your journey? Tell us your story from the start. Where's home? You're in Singapore now.
Yes.
What's it been like?
I'm an only child. So you could say that I like a little bit of attention. I like to burn everything. I like to be involved in everything. I do not like not knowing. So my parents were fantastic parents who involved me in everything. You were at every dinner party, you were at every table, you were at every conversation. I grew up in multiple places all over Victoria. And eventually when I finished school, I didn't want to go to university. I had enough of school. I wanted to get out into the real world. I wanted to be at work with my own money, be independent, stand on my own 2 feet. At the time, when I finished high school, I was in Bendigo, Victoria, and then led me to Melbourne. My first job was a receptionist at 2 regional radio stations in Victoria. And my boss at that time, who's been a lifelong friend ever since, called me in after 3 months and said, "You are possibly the worst receptionist we have ever hired. But I tell you what, you'll be a tremendous traffic manager." And traffic manager is the person who logs all the commercials between the music, logs what plays, when, make sure you have the material, you work with the sales team, you work with the content teams, you're involved in every part of the radio station. But most importantly, you make sure that the revenue is attached to those commercials. That kind of started the media career. And from there, I have done radio, TV, outdoor, back to radio. A small time, I did work in an advertising agency. So throughout this long career in radio, it's always been about trading, about revenue generation, making sure you are responsible for the profit, whether it be a media or a TV network or an outdoor network across Australia, APJ. And along that journey, in my last media role, we had one of the systems that is extremely important to actually going to air every day would die a very slow death. And we needed someone to keep it alive. And the head of IT at the time knew this group of developers and brought them in. And they certainly kept us alive for probably a year longer than we had hoped, which gave us time to put out the tender, pick the new system, et cetera, et cetera. Because as you can imagine, those things don't happen quickly. And so throughout that, I spent a lot of time with these developers, and especially the head of R&D. And we just we got along. And we decided that one day in the future, wouldn't it be great to do something together? In between time, I had been in Melbourne, I ended up in Sydney, and my husband was coming back to Singapore. So came back. I spent a year coming and going between Sydney and Singapore and working Australian hours, at which for a year is difficult and time consuming. And even though you want to give your best in the job, it's really difficult when new people come into the business and you have no standing with them, no relationship with them, and you can't build when you're not there face to face. So after a year, it was clear that this wasn't fair to them and it wasn't fair to me, and it was time to move on. And at that time, that particular gentleman who was head of the R&D we'd always stayed in touch. We'd always made sure that we're aware of what each other was doing. And we decided that we would create this company called Max Dragon Technology, which would have a strong bend of software creation for media that could extend out into other pillars. And 7 years ago, that's how Max Dragon began. They were and they are exceptional developers. We made a very quick call that AI was where the world was going and where the differences could be made. So AI, machine learning. We delved into on the side IoT, but even as he was teaching me today about the Internet of Behaviors, which is a lovely new acronym in the technology space that is coming into play and how it can affect us and where that's how that can be the next frontier of where you can go with AI. So we've spent time building that up. Happy to admit to you, Zubin, some days are good days, some days are bad days. Those are the up and downs of all business. So that's my story, if that makes sense. I was the worst receptionist that you've ever met, but then actually made a media career from where that particular general manager pushed me, which I will forever be grateful for. Then meeting this head of R&D from another company and deciding that one day we could build great things together. When we have.
Wow. I did programming to start with, and I wasn't very good at it. I just talked a lot. So I went into sales, and then I did pretty well. And then how I became a recruiter, and that's probably for another day.
I understand.
So it's interesting, and I'm an only child as well, so I can totally relate to what you just said there. So this was from Australian Radio Network, right? And you came into this business, and I'm guessing your business partner is somebody you met there. When you started out, everybody who aspires to be an entrepreneur, there's an opportunity they see. What was that which set you about on what prompted the idea? You talked about systems and things changing and how they've evolved now. When it started,
what was that one piece? I think if I remember correctly, back at the time, there was certainly a hole in the media market for smarter systems to take away a lot of that hard work. Not to replace people, but to make it easier as you went forward.
Yep.
At the time, facial recognition went hand in hand with security, and making sure you're aware of what's going on in your environment was certainly a hot topic. And these were all things we could do. We already had in our back pocket, and we maybe naively went into this world of, certainly from my point of view, I'm like, oh God, I'm going to be my own boss. With my own hours. I can do whatever I want to do. It's not till about 3 or 6 months later that you go, I'm actually doing everything. I'm doing things I never thought I was going to do. And again, I've always been a hands-on person in reference to that only child. If you wanted it done, you were doing it.
Yep.
When you went home from school, if you didn't have friends over, mum and dad weren't playing with you, you had to entertain yourself. So you had to learn everything. You had to be everything. So I guess that's my naivety has thankfully been backed up by the fact that I don't mind rolling up my sleeves and, getting my hands in the way. So I would say it was at the beginning of AI is the next evolution. What I didn't take into account, or what I didn't probably really understand at that point in time, was what was an exceptional idea versus what is truly sellable. As in, what are people really prepared to take on board and, I guess, accept? And facial recognition is a great display of that. Facial recognition, which is not only who you are, but your micro expressions and your gait and all those things that go in it. They're exceptional pieces of technology, but are the buyers actually prepared to take that on? Because it can be quite confronting. Because the UK has got cameras everywhere across London, doesn't mean there isn't any crime. Just, are you prepared to deal with it? Are you prepared to purchase it? And are you prepared to see it in action? And that's probably my biggest learning. Coming from a media background where that's my experience, it's my lifeblood, and I felt comfortable there because I knew exactly where that was going and what was going on. To going into technology that I'm happy to admit, I still learn things today. I do not know it all by any stretch. So again, be prepared to learn, but be prepared to understand that the greatest concept that you can create is not always what people will actually purchase or what they're accepting of today. They might be accepting of it in 5 or 10 years. So hang on to it for today and be ready for where you're going to go in 5 and 10 years' time.
That's a great point. And I can relate to that again because, and maybe this is your experience as well, where your business goes through iterations of what you thought you were going to do and what you're actually doing.
Pivot.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wonder, this is not even close to what I probably wanted to start off with, but that is not to suggest I'm not having fun.
Pivot and right. Certainly, Reg. You've got to embrace everything. You've got to pivot, and you've got to know the time to pivot. And I think I've learned probably more out of requirement than joy is sometimes you can't hang on any longer. You can't hope that this is going to play out. You must pivot. You must take notice of what's going on. And COVID is one of the greatest reckonings for everyone. Pivot and adapt, or don't, and you're probably going to fade into the background. So it's not always happiness.
You're probably reading my mind. I was going to ask the lessons that you probably learn. Let me come to challenges. And you made a point earlier about how every day is a new day and probably a new challenge. I always say that out of 365, there's about 5 days that we celebrate as entrepreneurs. And then that's oxygen for the remaining 360. Or energy or fuel or whatever. One of the biggest challenges businesses face is funding and financial management. And maybe there are other challenges also, but could us understand how you went about that?
So we made a call very early on that we weren't going to ask for funding, that
Right.
we wanted to be the masters of our own destiny. To good, bad, or ugly, we were going to be, so between myself and the head of R&D, we make the choices. So where our technology is going, what we're developing, how we're going about it, that clearly sits within his lane. Obviously, the business, the marketing, the sales, and financially, the way we sit, that sits with me. Because don't forget, I'm not a coder. I could not code to save my life. I've learned a lot over the time, but I still can't, I can't be a developer in any way or form. So we're very defined skill sets. And I think we've all had to learn over time to be more understanding of each other's skill sets, because again, what a developer or the group of developers think is excellent. And I'm fighting back going, I'm never going to be able to put that out in the world. No one is going to accept that. No one is going to be, non-judgmental of that at this stage. You are clashing. You do have to be aware of everyone around you. As I said, we decided that we didn't want funding. Now, I'm going to say out of 365 days, there are certainly days I wish maybe we didn't take that path, and everyone else probably agrees with me. But again, we're small and we're agile, so that means we can make quick decisions and quick changes and quick updates. It also means, like I said, masters of our own destiny. And I think that is more important for the personalities within our team than having a group of investors who wants a board. Everyone wants to have a version of what you're doing and how. And of course, as we all know, Zubin, feedback is a gift. It is a gift, but sometimes you don't like that gift. Sometimes you just need to keep pushing. So that definitely, it was a very deliberate choice, but some days that feels like we've probably made our life a little bit more difficult because of that. But the overarching factor is we get to choose how we go about it. And that I guess was also within my naivety of, yay, I get to be my own boss. I get to do whatever I want. That is certainly a great part of it. And why do you get up and do what you do? It's about pride. I don't want to. It's not about money. It's not about being a Microsoft or an Oracle or an IBM. It's about pride. It's about I've worked hard all my life, made this life-changing decision to go from media into technology. My pride is what makes me get up every day, and people around me are all exactly the same. We'd all like to be multimillionaires. Don't get me wrong. It'd be lovely. But pride is what makes us get up and makes us create things that are meaningful to our clients, meaningful to us. So that's probably, when you're small, you do have to take everyone's opinions and everyone's awareness into account. certainly everyone is on an equal footing. Everyone has something worthwhile to say. It's just at what point within that life cycle of that product or the sale does that come into play? And at the end of the day, some days are going to be really tough. But yeah, as I said, we're doing this because we want to put great pieces of technology out into the world. That's what drives everyone forward.
Wow. I've heard a lot of things people work for and pride. It's wonderful to hear what you just said because people often sound very cliched. Pride is something that's very rare. Someone taking pride in their work. And maybe it's because it just comes naturally to so many people. To make that a cornerstone of what you're doing is probably very rare, if anything. I was just going to say, what about culture? How big is your team? And how big is the organization now?
We use all contractors, so we pull on people when we need them at the time. Any given point in time, we could be 10 or we could be 25. It depends on what we're doing and how we pull them in. My corporate background says you should have employees, you should have offices here, there, and everywhere. You should put your branding up in the world. And I will say that I struggled at the start. That I work from home. This is now, as you can see, this is now my world. And, that the money you could have put into an office, you don't actually need when you can put it into your people. I still wholeheartedly believe, and I hope everyone would agree with me, that the fact that everyone has a say, everyone has a version of what they want to do and how they can contribute, and everyone is heard, is extremely important to our culture. But at the same time, we've taken a very clear view that pull on the best people for those best roles at that point in time. Because there are so many ups and downs through a startup or a small company, you just simply can't afford to have employees on the books who are twiddling their thumbs, doing nothing. So yeah, we take a very different approach to that. And we have a very big pool of contractors who, they ring us. Are you ready for me yet? Do you want me yet? No, not yet. Wait a month, so you can come back in a month. Because the reputation of the type of software we create is blue ocean AI. We do things very differently. Just because years ago everyone used this version of how you created, we don't. We like to break the rules. We like to get there faster, quicker, more efficiently, and we break every algorithm we can to get there in a different way. So people like to work within that, especially developers who like to stand out, to be different, showcase their skill sets. And again, we're a relaxed culture, but when something needs to be done, everyone puts in to get it done. Because again, pride is what drives us. Not just me, everyone else.
Yes. And it's important that even in all the diversity of thought, there is a commonality of purpose. The underlying purpose of whatever it is you're doing, for whom you're doing it, and for what you're doing.
Yeah.
How has this entrepreneurial stint helped you evolve as a person?
Oh, wow. Stephen, right, you're going a bit deep there. It's made me more resilient than ever. I certainly was very resilient, but it's made me more resilient. I'm sure during your own corporate career, there are times when you wake up in the morning and you think, I just can't do this. And you don't. You stay in bed for the day, you call a sickie and you're done. There is none of that. As an entrepreneur, there is no out. There is no ready to go. You must get up. And I think so I've probably always been the type of person that I just let it roll off my back, just move forward. I've always been the move forward person no matter what. And I think being an entrepreneur, even though you've had those skills, you probably didn't play on them so much in previous roles because you're in that corporate structure and there's a lot of padding around that. Whereas in a small company, there's nowhere to go. So you end up exacerbating what was already there. I think that's probably the best bit is you knew you were strong. You knew that you had the strength to keep going. But the difference is now you actually don't have a choice. So yeah, I had a boss who had a wonderful saying many years ago, which was take a spoonful of cement and suck it up. And it is a great piece of advice. You got to keep going. So I think it would be hard to say I didn't have those abilities before, or those underlying strengths, because they always were there, but they're just exacerbated so much that you can't afford them, and you don't feel like it, or you just don't want to get out of bed, and you don't want to hear something else broke. There's nowhere to go. You've got to move forward. So yeah, I guess move forward is probably my best strength right now. Move forward no matter what.
I was going to ask you next if there is a mantra or a belief or a cliche or something, and I'm hearing move forward.
Would it would be me. For the company, our tagline is creating fierce technology. So as I said, on the edge, doing something different, fierce, hence Max Dragon. We are
Pretty
yeah,
fierce.
it is.
It's not just dragon.
You look at our color scheme, it's red, white, and black. There is nowhere to go there. And I remember years ago, people going, "Oh, the color scheme black. What are you doing? What are you doing?" Now everyone's got the black version, and I'm like, "You're just copying us. You're catching up to where we are." So we've always wanted to stand out. We've always wanted to be a little bit different. So creating fierce technology is for the company. Move forward for me, and I think very much everyone feels we are the masters of our own destiny. And that today in the current landscape is a very healthy thing to do.
Is there anything you would have done different if you
Oh, 1,000 things. Oh, gosh, 1,000 things? I say that with a joke, but if I'd done them differently, I wouldn't have learnt as much. So I think for every bad day, you learn more and more, not only about yourself, but about the team. You learn about your business category. You learn about your clients. There are probably small tweaks where I thought to myself, "Oh, I wish I hadn't have said that in that presentation, or I wish I hadn't have gone down that path. I should have been, quicker to pull on that lever." But I would have to say I'm quite proud of the fact that when COVID hit, we did a quick pivot without hanging on going, "Oh God, this is going to ruin us." We made a change and we went in a different direction to make the most of that. So I think I'd like to say that there are probably little pieces that could add up, but all in all, that journey has made me and made Max Dragon who we are today. So no, I'm going to stick with what we did and hang on to it.
Fantastic. And I think that's very important advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, because I think just as human beings, we don't want to be making mistakes. And I think it was Bill Gates who once said that success is a lousy teacher. And I'm hearing that from you, where every time something didn't go right or probably didn't go the way you want,
Yeah, you've got to learn. For every time you
you learn, you pivot.
it is backwards or a side step or it didn't go the way you wanted it to be, just learn from it. Good. You know what? If it hurt and if it really meant something, you won't do it again. I think that's an important lesson for anyone, whether you're a corporate or you're a CEO. Listen and learn. It's a skill that is underplayed these days.
Does anything ever keep you up at night, even? Or is there
Uh,
anything that you think,
Absolutely. What keeps me up at night is when that new piece of software is about to be launched and it's been tested 1,000 times and damn well at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to turn it on and it's going to break. Those things keep me awake because I can't control those things.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, I like to joke that when you make something, you've made it and there's sticky tape everywhere or it's super glued together. And wherever you are in that life cycle of that approach, that can make your break you. That keeps me up at night because I can't control that. I can't help it, such as I said, I can't code. I am not a developer. So I can't help, the guys get to that outcome. Sometimes it keeps me up at night, ridiculous things like right now we have 31 AI models that,
wow,
they're just in our new product, Moody. And what keeps me up at night now is, do I name them unisex names or do I call them one Rabby and one is short and sharp? So that comes back to the marketing perspective, which will then flow on to the sales. They're the stupid little things that wake you up at 3 a.m. or you wake up at 3 a.m. and go, "Oh, God, I need to write," and I run into my office and write it on my whiteboards so I don't forget the next day and go, that solves that. now I'm happy. Now I can go back to sleep, which I don't know if that's right, wrong, or otherwise, but certainly is how I work.
No, and it works for you. And I think that's probably, and even something as simple as writing on a whiteboard, if that's how you're going to work and remember that. And I think, again, everyone's got to find their style and their own technique, as I call it, and it works. Any insights that you feel, any trends that you see in your industry that maybe worry you or make you think about where this is all going, or maybe they even make you optimistic? Any thoughts there?
Certainly, one thing that worries me is AI creation. You've got to have care and concern about what you're making, and you've got to have some level of control over that. AI, for example, when you create models in your own environment, they are safe and secure, and they only learn or do what you're asking them to do. But once they're released out in the world, they have the propensity to learn and grow at an exponential rate that if you don't take care and you don't put steps into place, you can be affected. If hate speech, if people decide to attack you, to adjust that AI model to go down the line of that hate speech, if you don't have precautions in place, that is certainly a concern. We do. I feel quite comfortable that everything that we make, we create from an ethical point of view. If CNN says we don't want you to train AI models on our data, even though it's publicly listed information, we don't. We have a level of care and concern. And I think so. I don't worry about our care and concern as Max Dragon because I know we do the right thing and I know we will always hold that path. I probably see more of what I like to make this reference. We all remembered the Terminator and Skynet taking over the world. Now, I'm not saying that's a possibility, but I'm saying if you let technology get ahead of our ethical standards and our privacy and the care the companies should put in place, we will get to an uncomfortable position. And so that's probably what makes me think twice about everything that we do. Am I doing something today that I would want my grandchildren to be proud of or to be comfortable with? Would I ever be embarrassed that if it went down this path that we had led it that way or we had added to that outcome? Don't get me wrong, artificial intelligence is phenomenal. And, where it can go and what it can do will just grow exponentially over the years. But we all need to care about what we're putting out there. So I think it's not Max Dragon I worry about it. It's others within the space. And they all might do the perfect thing. But, sometimes
it'll only take one. It'll only take one. And you're right. I think it is incumbent upon every entrepreneur probably out there in whatever they are doing to have integrity and the greater good, if you may.
It is.
At the center of whatever they're making.
Yeah. Because it's easy to cheat today, but cheating today will rob you tomorrow. So sometimes the pain point might be a little bit stretched out, but doing the right thing, I think will pay off. I hope it always pays off in the end.
I hope so too. You read many of the success stories and they don't necessarily reflect the integrity one would have expected, but that doesn't stop people from doing the right thing when they have to. If you were to give advice to Linda starting off, and it could be anyone, but I'm just saying, if you were advising Linda when she's starting off her journey as an entrepreneur, what would that be?
My advice probably would be prepared to do everything. Be prepared to learn as much as you possibly can, because then you become a valuable member or team member to everyone. Even if it's not your specialty, learn, find a way that you can value. Don't be upset when you've got to do things that maybe don't make you feel comfortable or you never thought you were going to do. It's just a journey and it's all to the end game. And it doesn't have to be forever, but as long as you get up every day and 99% of the time you're actually pretty proud of what you do and be happy, I think that's quite a good result.
Fantastic. Linda, it's been fabulous talking to you. and listening to your story and all the advice, especially that last bit about what we call rolling up sleeves and getting our hands dirty and doing what it takes, making the coffee, washing the cup, even probably anything. And I come from corporate jobs as well, and then been the postman, been the delivery
courier.
boy, been the courier. That's my favorite. And only the other day I was doing my own NDA for something. And I said, I taught myself. I said, I looked at a few samples, I put together what I needed.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. There's been so much learning in all of it. Do you miss the old world that you were part of? All the sparring that it entailed?
Look, I probably missed the big teams, and with that comes big culture. Now, that doesn't always mean a good thing either. On a good day, great culture. I don't miss bad days. So I think I probably did maybe halfway along the journey. I certainly missed that so many of these things aren't my job and that they were done by so many other people. But that probably lasted for 3 months. And then I moved out of that and again, look forward. Don't look back. You can't change anything. And to go back, I live in Singapore. I don't live in Australia, number one. So I can't go back. And again, you can't affect what happened. You can only affect where you go. And that's where my pride and my positivity and my lean in and everything comes into play. And learn, but lean in and keep going. I certainly missed that on the 15th of every month, someone put some money in my account and I didn't have to justify a whole hell of a lot for it. And someone else paid it. Someone else gave you the slip and someone else did the hard work to actually even get it to your bank. Versus now, as you say, the postman, the courier, the tax, the accountant, the whole piece. I miss those small pieces of joy that I never thought I would. But as I said, that was probably halfway through Max Dragon's evolution. That probably kicked in. And then you get busy and things take over and you enjoy so many other pieces that fades off into the background.
Wonderful. Linda, thank you so much
Yeah.
for having made the time today.